Oh, welcome. Thanks for being willing to foster a dog in your multi-dog household. My name is Angela, and I'm the HSHV behavior specialist for dogs. And we, along with the foster team, thought it might help to give people a short little video with some tips about bringing a foster dog into the home when you already have a resident dog or dogs in place to help facilitate things and prevent any conflict and make sure everything goes smoothly. So the first thing to know as far as meeting your potential foster is that the behavior team at HSHV does identify dogs that seem to be more compatible and more dog social with other dogs than others. So we'll make recommendations if we think that a dog wouldn't do well in a home with another canine friend. We do dog tests with most of the dogs that come into the shelter. So most times if you are looking to adopt or to foster a dog, we will have some information about how they did in at least one dog interaction. There may be some exceptions for very small dog. We don't always do dog tests. If you're doing a medical foster or a dog is under the age of 6 months, there might be reasons that we have not yet dog tested those dogs. But in most cases, we will have some background, some idea of how they've done at least in one other meet and greet with a dog. Assuming that dog assessment goes well, we would give guidelines as to whether, we think they're reasonably dog social, or maybe they are best to meet a certain type of another dog in the house, or they might prefer a high energy dog or a lower key dog in the house. And then based on that, the foster emails will indicate kind of which dogs can go to a home with another dog. They might indicate what types of other dogs might be a good match for this dog. And if you are interested in meeting one of them, the foster team will arrange a time so that you can bring your dog to the shelter to do a little meet and greet and make sure they're all compatible before you bring your foster home. Assuming that everything goes well with the initial intro, then some things to think about are how you're going to transport your foster back to your place. Probably not the best, safest idea to put two dogs who just met each other a few minutes ago into a car by yourself in an attempt to drive across town if they're unrestrained, uncontained, etc. It could just be a lot of activity bouncing around your car and risk of distracting you or interfering with your driving. In worst case scenario, we don't want suddenly dogs that just met being confined in a small area and having a conflict while you're on the road. So think about, if you're bringing that foster home, how you're going to do it. Maybe you and a family member have come in 2 cars. Maybe you're going to make a trip to drop your dog off at home and then come back for the foster dog. Or maybe you have a way of separating them in your vehicle, having one dog or both dogs ride in a crate, or if you have a barrier that you can put over a hatch of an SUV or station wagon type situation. But probably best that they're not both just loose bouncing around the back seat while you're attempting to drive. Once you arrive home, go slow. Even if the meet and greet has gone well, it's going to be a different thing having more extended interaction. It's going to be an adjustment for your resident dog to have another dog in their home, in their space, and being, inside interior space where there might not be as much ability to kind of move away and get distance if they need to. So help your dogs out and give each dog their own space for a while. You can still do some shared activities, which was a great way to start building a relationship, taking some shared buddy walks, spending time in the yard, maybe having some supervised time, interactions together in the house. But make sure you're giving them some regular breaks as well, especially if you see one or both dogs are really needing a break. And we'll talk about some body language signs that would indicate that in a few minutes. Definitely supervise all the interactions during this adjustment phase and use management to prevent any problems. So crates, exercise pens, baby gates, or at the very least, especially in those early days, having leashes dragged so that you have a way to gently move a dog away, call them back to you, give another dog a break if you need to intervene for some reason. Our goal through all of this is always to be proactive and not to let any problems start. So it's very common that there could be some vying for attention or resources. So really be proactive and prevent any reason for jealousy, competition, possessiveness to arise over anything that could be considered kind of a resource. So one of the biggest sources of conflicts between dogs in a home are things like food resources, toys, chew items. And really, it's a very natural behavior for dogs to want to maintain access to food or highly desired items. So prevention is really the best policy here. When you have a foster dog, feed them separately entirely from your resident dog. Always is easiest if they're fed set meal times, food bowls are set down at a given time, give the dogs an opportunity to eat where they're away from each other. After a while, when they're done, go ahead and pick the bowls up before letting them out into the common area again or letting them have access to each other. But that's really the best way to prevent problems. And this is probably one of the number one problems fosters have had when we have had dog-dog conflicts in the home. So again, an ounce of prevention is really worth it here. Just feed totally separately, even if you've had dogs before who ate in the same area just fine. Even if your other dogs at home do that without conflict, it's just not something that's worth taking the risk here. So all feeding should happen in a separate room or in a crate where the dogs can't access each other. And the same is true for any other type of maybe food item, chew item, or things that the dogs might really value. So things like Kong stuffed with food that you're given for enrichment, chew bones, raw hides, giving a special puzzle feeder. Again, only provide those when the dogs are separate. And if you do notice that there are favorite toys for one or more of the dogs that they might compete over, probably best to pick those up in the common areas and maybe give them individual time to play with you or play with their toy on their own, but remove them from any environments that the dogs are going to be sharing. And watch for any signs of competition over things like favorite resting places, attention from family members, things like that. If your dog snuggled in his or her favorite place on the couch where they sleep every night, and are your foster dogs over there trying to pester them or crowd them out, just call the foster dog away. Again, having leashes dragged would enable you to just move them over to the other side of the room, give them a dog bed to lay on. Don't let them harass the resident dog out of their favorite resting area. And watch for signs of crowding or getting possessive over attention from the family members. If you see that dogs are starting to group and get around you and get tense and shoulder each other away, best thing to do is kind of just remove attention, walk away. Make sure you're still giving each dog individual attention separately. But if you see some tensions arising, the best thing to do is kind of in the moment, remove yourself from that situation. If you're no longer there as a resource to guard and get possessive over, there's nothing to get tense about. Some things to watch for in managing the dog interactions in your home to make sure things go well. So when we see dogs interact or play, what we like to see are loose, wiggly bodies. And that really can characterize what, again, loose and wiggly is what we use often when we're describing happy play, good play, nice interactions. That mean their bodies are kind of curved and waggy, and their whole torso might be wiggly. The tail's loose, their mouths are open, their faces are soft. You aren't seeing signs of muscle tension in their forehead or around their lips. Tails and body are kind of at normal positions. You might see things like play bows, where they bow to the ground with their elbows bent. Maybe some light mouthing if they're wrestling and tooth fencing and play, but nothing that is grabbing on and holding on and causing pain or breaking skin. We want to see lots of pauses in interaction. So if one dog is constantly on the other one, chasing the other one, wrestling with the other one, and there's just no breaks or pauses, that's not what we want. We want to see dogs that wrestle for a bit and then stop and do a play bow or shake off or sniff the ground for a bit, and then re-engage. That's how dogs keep arousal down and keep everything going well. If we have games like wrestling and chasing, it's good to see some role reversal so that it's not always one dog being chased or one dog on the ground during a wrestling match. A good way to test is if you give the dogs a little break from each other and then let them go back to it. Do both dogs want to go back and play, or is one dog kind of checking out and wanting to go do something else? Self-handicapping means the bigger, younger, stronger dog is sort of limiting themselves, making themselves smaller, slowing themselves down in the chase game, not being as rough or using all their strength to kind of match their partner's abilities. Seeking proximity to players, that's more related to our play groups. Sorry, recycling slides. But, you know, again, as we're talking about giving breaks, like seeking the other dog out that they're playing with, if they've been kind of separated or given a pause or break or in another room for a little bit, do they come and look for their dog again and want to re-engage? Play looks silly, lots of exaggerated movements, big, huge play bows, kind of rocking horse, silly gait. It's not abnormal to hear some vocalization, some play growling or barking, but as long as all the other body language is looking, again, good and loose and happy, not something to necessarily be concerned about unless it gets really heightened and intense and excessive. And then dogs kind of running side by side, doing kind of some parallel running, especially with a little bit of space between, so they're not shoulder slamming or body slamming each other as they do that. Now, if you start to see some of these yellow light behaviors, you might want to step in and intervene, give them a break before things start to escalate. So if we aren't seeing that role reversal, like it's one dog being chased all the time, bodies are looking tense, we're seeing some signs of possible stress, such as some lip licking, hackles raised, whale eye, which is when eyes get wide and you can see the white of their eyes. If one dog is sort of being cornered and can't get away from the other dog, if one dog is being kind of pushy with sniffing for a long amount of time or putting their chin over, their paw over the other dog's back, or even kind of mounting and humping. If we start to see some kind of what we often call corrections, like a little air snap to tell the other dog to back off, that's not necessarily inappropriate communication, but it's a sign that somebody wants a break and wants the other dog to get away, so we can help that dog out. If we see a dog doing what we call displacement behaviors, which are normal behaviors, but kind of out of context. So suddenly stopping and scratching, yawning, sniffing the ground a lot, can be signs to your dog that they want to break. Chest butting, kind of coming chest to chest, or play that's getting really vertical. So they're on their rear legs, kind of sparring with their front legs excessively. A dog that's ignoring another dog's cutoff signals, meaning some of these displacement behaviors I talked about a second ago, that sniffing, scratching, yawning, lip licking, turning away. If one dog's communicating they want to break and the other isn't reading that, then we might want to intervene. And if we see tooth fencing, mouthing that's going on kind of excessively, where they're grabbing, holding, and pulling onto skin. All of these mean that arousal's kind of going up, and we want to give them a break, build some pauses into the play, maybe engage them in something else for a little while so that nothing worse happens if one dog or both get tired of the interaction. And we definitely want to end play if we see a dog that's hiding, trying to get away, avoiding interactions, trying to get up on surfaces, get under furniture, get behind people. If we see body language like a tucked tail, again, frequent lip licks and whale eye, tense body posture, maybe very forward, very alert, tail going, again, maybe higher than normal and kind of relentlessly pursuing and wrestling and getting on top of the other dog without any kind of disengagement on their own. Stiff bodies, lunging, kind of hard stares, growling, snarling, snapping, or another dog that pins the other dog down and won't let them up or won't stop chasing. And escalations in the vocalization. So if the tone starts to change, it's getting louder, it's getting more intense, there's no pauses. These are all signs that we want to get in there and interrupt before a fight breaks out. And then probably I would separate the dogs from each other for some period of time, closely monitor them. If you're frequently seeing interactions like this, may need to talk about refostering. It might just not be a good compatible fit with your resident dog. Now, should conflict arise, we want to talk about safe ways to intervene without without any humans getting hurt, and hopefully with no dogs getting hurt. And idea, again, we're trying to be proactive and read all those body language cues, looking for those yellow light signals before it gets to something worse, so we don't have to get here. But should the worst happen, or we're seeing some of the red flag body language, the first thing I want to do is see if we can just call the dog away with some food rewards. Maybe each family member calls a different dog's name, tries to lure them away, reward, and then again separate the dogs. If the leashes are attached, if possible, we can just use a leash to gently move the dogs away, especially if you have multiple family members. Each person can pick up a leash and then move them away. Again, separating them after that. Most dogs will respond to a squeak from a squeaky toy as a attention getter. So if they're not responding to their name or to your verbal cues, sometimes just squeaking a little squeaky toy can get them excited and snapping out of that conflict to see what the sound's coming from. Again, you can use that to call them over, give them a reward, then move them to another room. If we need to start getting some physical intervention, rather than putting your body parts or body in between the dogs, see if you can pick up some kind of, ideally kind of like large flat object, like a couch cushion, a pillow, a piece of cardboard, something to start to try to intervene between the dogs, just kind of move in between, blocking their view, blocking their ability to contact each other, and get them separate while we move another dog away. Might be a good idea to just think what you have in the rooms that your dogs are going to be sharing space in, that you could pick up in case of an emergency, like whether it be your couch cushion, or if you have storage box somewhere, having the lid accessible. Think about what is in those spaces that in an emergency, what would you grab to put between the dogs if necessary? If a fight's actually broken out and none of these other methods are working, then we might use some kind of startle device. So maybe a little spray of water, an air corrector, citronella spray. And again, at first we wouldn't want to squirt the dogs right in the face, but maybe we start just discharging near their face, not directly at them. If necessary, we might have to do some more direct sprays to get them to release, but at first just trying to get a surprise factor so that they let go, and then maybe we can insert the couch cushion to move them apart. But only resort to these things if we're actually looking at a fight situation where they are making contact or have a hold of each other. If it's just starting to be escalating tension, we want to stay with trying to use the leash or a barrier or a recall to get them away from each other. So we only kind of go to these more aversive things if there's an actual fight breaking out. And the other thing you might try is a loud noise. So banging some bowls together, clapping your hands, something like that. Keep in mind the problem with the loud noise is it's going to affect all the dogs in the area. So if you have multiple dogs in your house and one of them's sound sensitive, not really involved in the fight, it's going to be an aversive experience for them. It could be scary, even if they're not involved in the fight, to hear those loud noises. So we try to resort to that kind of last. The big thing we want to remember is do not reach your hands in towards their collars or their heads. It's very much our instinct to grab for those parts of the dog. It is also very dangerous. It's very easy to get a redirected bite if your hands are close to the pointy areas of the dog. So don't reach in and grab. We don't want to have any fosters bitten. If none of the above are working and you have to physically move the dog, then the safest place to grab the dog is to hold the dog by the waist, sort of right in front of the hips. Usually it's best if there are two kind of adult family members, one can grab each dog, lift up by the hips, and then move them away. The there's still some risk of a redirected bite. Dogs can turn back around and possibly connect with you, but it's less likely and it's a bit harder for the dogs. So that's the safest place to put your hands if you absolutely have to put your hands on dogs. And again, the real important takeaway is we want to be proactive. Watch body language, set up situations to prevent conflict, try to get good matches with your resident dogs so that none of this escalates into a problem area. And if you need any help in doing that as you're getting your dog adjusted and the foster dog adjusted to your home, remember that you have support options. Feel free to reach out to the behavior department. This is my email, angela.s@hshv.org, or reach out to the foster department with your contacts for them. If you have concerns, have questions, need some help from us, I am happy to do consults with fosters to help out in this process. We can chat on the phone, meet via Zoom, whatever works for you, to give you some tips if things aren't going totally smoothly. But we really want to help you make this successful. And if it's not going to be a good fit with your dog, that's totally fine too. We've learned something, we've given the dogs a break. We just want to make sure that everyone's safe and happy and free of stress in the process. So please reach out if you have any questions. Thank you so much for fostering and appreciate your taking the time to watch this. Thanks.